Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a cloud solutions architect specializing in management technologies. Today's discussion is another installment in our ongoing discussion, kind of comparing ConfigMgr and showing how to do equivalent things in Intune. Today's discussion, we will be focused on software updates. Here's the agenda that we will follow, pretty similar to what we've talked about. And as we get started, we're focusing on software updates today. So in ConfigMgr, we have, we'll see in a minute, the very common kind of component structure, whatever, for software updates in ConfigMgr. In Intune, generically speaking, the software updates are delivered through Windows Update for Business. Now, there's definitely some detail, in that, and we'll dig into that as we go along. Right, so this session is going to cover a number of different topics. The Windows Update for Business umbrella covers several different flavors, if you will. We'll focus anyway. So we'll get started with that and just dive in. Okay, so as we get started, again, the focus of the session is going to be on how to do software updates with Intune. But for those coming from a ConfigMgr perspective, I always want to give the comparison, kind of contrast between ConfigMgr and Intune. So when it comes to components, kind of the implementation, the infrastructure side, on ConfigMgr, we have a number of components that are required to do the job of delivering software updates. We have the ConfigMgr hierarchy. We have automated deployment rules, potentially. We definitely have the software update point infrastructure. We have a distribution point that's needed. We have possibly System Center Updates Publisher if we're going to be doing third-party updates. Definitely the client in maintaining client health. Windows Update or WSUS, required, right? And all of those have to be working and functional, and there's a lot there. Good news is it largely works very, very, very well, right? But there's a lot of effort to maintain these systems and so forth, infrastructure that you own. Compared to Intune, where all of this is delivered out of Windows Update for Business. For example, there is, like on the ConfigMgr side, you have to routinely synchronize your ConfigMgr software update point with WSUS, right? Microsoft Updates, whatever. And you don't have to do that at all with Intune. Windows Update for Business is kind of that service behind the scenes that takes care of all of it. There's no synchronization. There's no storage of software updates in the database. There's no database to think about, right? None of that, right? It's just a service. It's a very easy, streamlined approach for being able to deliver updates, as you'll see, right? One thing that I was going to mention later, I'll go ahead and mention it now. Software updates is one of those things, very important, but it is time consuming. And if there's ways to streamline the process of delivering software updates, then I'm all for it, right? And so finding ways to do that and be able to get the job that you need to get done while minimizing IT effort, that would be a tremendous combination, and Windows Update for Business gives you that, as I think you'll see, right? There's also proactive remediations. Now, proactive remediations is not part of Windows Update for Business. It's not really even part of the software update mechanism in any shape or form. The reason I mention it is there is at least one organization, HP, that I know about, that leverages proactive remediations to help deploy their different firmwares and different things through Intune. And so if HP leverages it, then you can too, right? So there's definitely some things you would want to dig into to understand that before you make the choice to do so, but possible. Right, and so it could be an option for deploying third-party updates if you chose to do it that way. Not the only option. You could do it other ways too, as we'll talk about. Right, and then AutoPatch again it's not a unique software update delivery mechanism, but it works in conjunction with Windows Update for Business as more of a managed ability to use Windows Update for Business and fit structurally around Windows Update for Business to really deliver a streamlined approach to software update deployment in your organization. We'll touch on C quickly, AutoPatch, as we continue. In terms of capabilities, if you want to deliver quality and feature updates, M365 updates, choose ConfigMgr, choose Intune, whichever one you want. It's fine. And when it comes to Teams updates, you can deliver Teams updates out of ConfigMgr. Now, the caveat there is it's going to be via an MSI-based deployment, whereas with Intune, that will be handled with AutoPatch, and AutoPatch will be focused on the monthly enterprise channel of Teams, right? For Edge updates, you can deliver those with CM, no problem. You can also deliver those with AutoPatch using the stable channel, no problem there. Can you support third-party updates? With CM, absolutely. Using System Center Updates Publisher, you can do that all day. Yes, you can do that with Intune using either proactive remediations as mentioned, or there are third parties, such as Patch My PC, that you can leverage who will package up those third-party updates and make them available for you. Driver updates. Can you do that with CM? No. Historically, you could, but that has been removed now for a while for various reasons, and so there's no direct way to do driver updates in CM. However, with Intune, it's very possible, and you'll see that as we go along. Do you have an option for automating your updates? Well, the answer is yes in both cases, different pathways. With ConfigMgr, that's the automated deployment rules. Through Intune, the ultimate way to do that is through AutoPatch. Although you could set up automation, if you will, of your updates just manually, right, through creating the various, as you'll see in a minute, deployment rings that you want to create. And that also is something that really need to kind of underscore is different between CM and Intune. In CM, the automation is really needed because every month you're going to need to go through and approve new updates. Every month you're going to need to go through and deploy those updates, right? Now that we've moved to a cumulative quality and feature update model in our updating approach, the overhead of having to go through and manually pick and choose which updates were needed, right, and desired is something that's in the rearview mirror, thankfully, right? Used to be that administrators spent a lot of time going through the available list of updates each month and deciding which ones you wanted or did not want to deploy. Now it's a quality update. You're going to deploy it, right? If you skip a month, you get the next month, and it's going to contain everything you had. And so it's a whole lot simpler approach. And so a lot of that automation, the approval and creating deployments, the ADRs, automated deployment rules, helped with that in Intune. In CM. But in Intune, you don't need to worry about that. The thing you worry about with Intune is the deployment of those updates. And the update ring structure, which you'll see in a minute, really helps you do that once and hopefully largely forget having to do it again, right? Okay. In terms of content management, that's streamlining the deployment of content across your enterprise. That would be in CM a number of different options. There's peer cache, there's delivery optimization, branch cache. You have third-party solutions such as One Nomad or Adaptiva. In Intune, your only pathway is delivery optimization, right? And so if you have a need, and you probably do, for content optimization, then take a look at delivery optimization. I've done some sessions on that if you want to reference my content and take a look, right? Because it's critical for Intune and being successful with the content you deploy through Intune. Okay. So continuing on, in terms of administrative effort, I would absolutely peg CM as having the most administrative effort. Yes, there are tools that you can minimize that, but it is going to be monthly, routine, ongoing administrative effort, right? With Intune, it is something you're going to have to pay attention to, yes, but it's more streamlined than CM for sure. So the idea of being able to configure it in Intune, build your rings, right? Reuse those configurations and the assignments month after month is a pretty significant. I don't know how many hours are invested by IT teams every month trying to manage and wrangle software updates. It's decreased with the improvements we've made in cumulative quality updates and different things, but still, there's a lot. And so any time that you can recover by streamlining that process, making it routine, something you don't have to think about really that much, the better, right? And Intune, Windows Update for Business, is really going to help you along that route, right? There's only, in my career, there's only one person in history that I've ever known that seemed to really, really get excited about Patch Tuesday. And, if that's something exciting for you, that's awesome, right? But to me, if there's any way to minimize the amount of work that I need to do on a Patch Tuesday and still get the job done and done well, then I would be all over that. And Windows Update for Business, to me, with Intune, is a strong step in that direction. Okay, so in terms of requirements, I have them listed on the screen. I'm not going to go through each one of these. These largely should be in place for most organizations, right? Shouldn't be a problem. So just a formality, mainly to list them out here. Okay, before we get into showing this in the console, I wanted to do a couple of diagrams to kind of compare and contrast. So what you see here is a traditional configuration manager infrastructure that would deliver, very simple actually, configuration manager infrastructure that would deliver software updates. Very often, the infrastructure is larger than this because of the number of primary sites and so forth, right? But for every primary site, you would need at least one software update point, maybe more, that stays in sync with Microsoft updates, so that we can pull down those Microsoft updates available to our local software update point, then be able to decide which of those, largely that's not a decision anymore, but go ahead and approve those for updating, go ahead and deploy those to our environment. And so through the management point, that policy would arrive down to our managed devices. Those managed devices would talk through the software update point and go ahead and install the software update. So not a difficult thing. Has been used for years and years and years very effectively. Great solution, but a lot of moving parts, right? In terms of between CM and Windows Update for Business, CM uses the concepts of software update groups to define updates that you want to deploy out to the environment. Windows Update for Business does not have that. It's a service. So any updates that are out there, quality feature, will just go ahead and deploy. There's no extra infrastructure in the mix at all. No need to quote unquote synchronize whatever. It's just handled by the Windows Update for Business service. Okay, so here's a it is a simplified version of what it looks like in Intune. So you have Intune. You will configure via your update rings policy to instruct your managed devices how to get updates and what the cadence will be and what schedule, whatever, and then they will go and directly get it from Windows Update for Business, Microsoft updates, right? Let's add a little bit. So a little bit more of a structured picture as how this works, expanded picture. So notice you have Windows Update for Business deployment service up here. Windows Update for Business itself represented here, the configuration, whatever. Intune, right? So in Intune, you're going to build your update ring policy, and you're going to deploy that to the device. the update ring policy is going to describe how those devices should go and retrieve the Windows updates and deploy the Windows updates. So think of update rings. You can have as many as you want, as few as you want. Probably in the order of 4 to 5 is pretty typical for organizations, and that approach will give you an expanding circle of ability to deploy these updates across your enterprise. Right? So you start with a few, expand to another set, right? And so you have as many rings as you need. And the idea is you build those rings and you keep those rings. Those rings are assigned, they're built, they're structured. That's the way AutoPatch works, is it will build the rings for you, right? And give you that you can use. And so it's just a repeatable month after month process. So those rings communicate down to the device what cadence we're going to use to get the updates, right? Ultimately, the way the updates come down could be there's some situations where you think of the updates that are available. Typically, it's just going to be a quality update. But there's another set of updates in the mix. There could be driver updates, whatever. Where you will just get those updates, apply them, whatever. There could be situations, though, where certain updates need to be filtered out. Maybe if you pause a deployment of a feature update or a quality update, maybe if we detect that there's a problem with a quality update, then we will hold that, and you won't want to deploy that as we go through. So there's various filters that can get in the mix. Windows Update Deployment Service works through Windows Update for Business. There are these filters that are applied to tell Windows Update for Business what is available, not. And those filters will basically, whatever updates come down from Windows Update for Business, when the update rings pull those updates, will be screened out sometimes by that filter, right? So this is a bit more of a deep dive as to how that works. And then in terms of the way that we evaluate, right, what kind of patches are out there, what kind of filtering we need, right? Is this a Windows Update for Business device? Yes, right? Are there any configured deferrals? Deferrals will affect what updates are offered. So that's one level of filtering. Are we only delivering quality updates or critical updates, right? Are we delaying delivering an update because there's a safeguard hold in place? We'll talk about that in just a minute, right? What is the targeted OS version? Is it Windows 11? Is it Windows 10? That's going to impact the updates that are chosen to be delivered, right? There's also scan detail that the device has to provide in order to get the correct list of updates and so forth, right? So anyway, that's the attempt I'm trying to describe, or I'm trying to describe how that works with this graphic, right? Okay. All right. So, and then finally, I'm not going to go into this really because it's not really an auto patch discussion that we're having, except to say that AutoPatch can ride on top of Windows Update for Business and give you a layer of automation and control that is prescribed onto your environment. Not that you have to take what we give you. There's definitely flexibility in how AutoPatch is deployed for an organization. But the point is, it's an automation layer on top of Windows Update for Business that is really pretty cool. Right? And so if AutoPatch is something you have not looked at, definitely would consider looking at it. It offers a lot of good capability and streamlining, even more than just Windows Update for Business alone. That said, right, the rest of the session, we really want to dig into and see all of this in action, see how it works, see what the options are. So let me pull in the Intune portal. All right, let me grab that. Here's the Intune portal. Move it over to the screen. All right. So let's just explore the options. So if I go to devices and then I focus in on Windows devices, then I will see in the list Windows 10 and later updates. So it used to be in the console that we organized this a little bit differently. Now we've consolidated everything under Windows 10 and later updates, at least for Windows updates, Windows Update for Business. And that's good, right? It makes, it clarifies things a bit to do it. Now we can kind of break it down. So we're going to talk about each one of these, right? Let me just say that your focus for building your update structure should be on your update rings largely. Maybe there's some places, which you'll see in a minute, where there's things that you want to leverage, but the intention is the update rings will be your primary source of driving your updates through the environment. And so you see already, here's a little silly demo one that I did, but you see already there's some rings here that I did not create. AutoPatch created these rings, and this is just the default configuration. So as you look at these rings, again, the intention is it's an expanding circle, and you kind of see that the way AutoPatch is represented. We have the test ring, ring 1, ring 2, ring 3, and then the last ring, right? So that's the way it would be deployed. Test would be in the very center of that circle, then it would expand to ring 1, ring 2, ring 3, and then last ring, right? Within each one of these rings, you would have the ability to set different things that you might find relevant to that ring. In other words, you might want to have a different setting for your test systems, test ring, than you do for your production rollout rings, right? Could be. So you have that ability. And then once you get these created, the idea is you just keep them in place and they keep being functional in the environment. So here's one that I created. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one because, frankly, I don't care to keep it. It doesn't need to be there. So good enough, right? And so now I'm going to go and create a profile, a ring, just to show you the idea, right? So I'll give it the same very descriptive name. And we have all of these settings, right? So first of all, do we want Microsoft product updates, right? So yeah, largely you do, right? You're going to want to get these quality updates, whatever, from Microsoft Update. So default allow. Do we want driver updates? So default is allow. My recommendation would be to block this. And the reason why is if you allow this, then Windows Update for Business will absolutely go out and get the drivers and will apply them. But you won't have any control over what drivers are actually deployed. It will be basically a plug-and-play kind of evaluation. I've just seen too many problems with that across environments. And so instead of doing it through Windows Update for Business and letting it drive what happens, I would rather use the more granular driver management option that we'll talk about in a minute, right? So it is fully possible to block the driver deployment in the ring and then do the driver deployment out of the driver's node you'll see in a minute. And that driver's node will still work, even though you've said block it here, right? Another way, this block does not impact the driver management you'll see in just a minute. It just simply blocks it from coming down from the generic Windows Update for Business. Now, you have your quality update and your feature update deferral period. So these are set to 0. You can set quality updates up to 30 days. And then with certain versions of Windows, the current ones for sure, feature updates can be deferred for 365 days. Now, these, depending on the channel of Windows, the flavor of Windows that you're deploying, some flavors of Windows may already have a deferral period built in. And so these deferral periods are in addition to whatever the default deferral period is based on the Windows choice that you're selecting. You'll see that in a minute, right? Here is an option set to no by default to decide if you're on a Windows 10 device, but it's capable of running Windows 11, do you just want to go ahead and upgrade that Windows 10 device to Windows 11? So it's an option, right? You can choose that if you want to. Should be a safe option because I've really never heard of a case where a Windows 10 system running Windows 10 would fail when it runs Windows 11, like the software would have incompatibility issues. That's just, I've not seen it happen, right? So if it's eligible to run Windows 10, this would be a cool way to go ahead and move it forward to 11. Sorry, if it's capable of running 11, this would be a cool way to move it forward to 11. But up to you, right? How long do you want to persist the ability to uninstall a feature update? And then here's the pre-release build. So these are the pre-release channels that you can choose, right? Which kind of relates up to the deferral periods up here as well. So I'll just leave that as not configured. And then the user experience settings. So here's where you can really get granular. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but notice you have a lot of different options. So auto install at the maintenance time, right? What's maintenance time? We'll talk about that in a minute. Auto install and do a restart as well at maintenance time. Auto install and restart at a specifically scheduled time. Install and reboot without the end user having any ability to control. So these are some fairly granular options, and you'll see as I go between these, the options that you have further to choose will change. So here's some active hours you can choose. Here's another set. So the maintenance time is the only real difference here, which I'll show you. And here is where you're going to set a specific time. You have those options, right? And so forth. So the options to really get granular at when you schedule, when you allow things to happen are good, right? So we'll use this one, has the most options. So I can schedule every week, once a month, multiple times a month, whatever I want. I can choose any day, specific days, whatever. I can choose a specific time based on the previous selections, right? So you have a good ability to get fairly granular. You can also set when your active hours start and end times will be for your update installations, anytime during this given window, right? You can do. So whatever, right? Choose which one works best for you. You might want to play with it a little bit. Do you want to give your end users the ability to pause Windows updates? Yes or no? Do you want to give your end users the ability to go into the console and check for Windows updates? Yes or no? Right? Largely, I see most organizations turn this off, where only the service is able to kind of do its own thing, but it's up to you, right? Used to be more of a big deal when we weren't doing the quality and feature update kind of bundles, when we had other updates available from Windows Update outside of just quality and feature updates. That was a bigger deal, and sometimes that still happens today, so it's really up to you. Deadline settings, whether you want to allow those or not, and what the different configurations are. So I hope you're getting and from there, basically it's just assigning and setting configurations and so forth. So I hope you get a sense that there's a lot of control in here, and there's a lot of possibility to really streamline operations by just setting up these rings and just letting them run forward, right? Okay. Now, let's move on. So here's feature updates, right? Well, Steve, wait a minute. I just saw feature updates over on the other page. Well, yes, you did, right? This is this feature update part works in conjunction with update rings, but what you configure here supersedes whatever you configure in update rings, right? So the idea of feature updates is simply this. If there is a particular version of Windows that you want to be the version of Windows that's across all of your machines in your environment, then this feature update setting will allow you to specify that version of Windows and hold your device at that version of Windows. So for any device that is not currently on the version of Windows you choose, then it will be moved forward to that version of Windows, and it will be held at that version of Windows, no matter what other feature updates are available. If you have devices that are already beyond the version that you specify, then they will not be downgraded, but they will not move forward any further. They will stay at their current version of Windows instead of continuing to roll forward, right? And then based on what you've decided to do, you can, make the update available ASAP, make it available on a specific date, make it the update available gradually. Now, this one is worth talking about, right? When I saw this, I went immediately to the Assignments tab because, whatever. I went immediately to the Assignments tab because I thought, well, if we're going to make it available gradually, surely I will have the ability to specify which groups will be deployed and when. But there's no ability to do that. You can add the groups, yes, right? If you have multiple groups you want to put in there, then you can make them available gradually. Even within a group, you can do that. But the back end, through machine learning, through the intelligence that we have in the service, we will kind of gradually put things out across your environment. You don't have any direct control as to how that cadence happens, but it will happen, and the service will take care of that in the back end to trickle that across all of your devices. If you want to see how that works, definitely would recommend you testing it out and kind of taking a look in your test environment to kind of see what the experience will be like. But that's what this does, right? And then if a device isn't eligible to run Windows 11 and Windows 11 is chosen, then you can basically tell it, no, just go ahead and do the latest Windows 10 feature update, and we'll do that too, right? So pretty nifty feature to be able to kind of help you have consistency in the Windows versions that are across the different systems in your environment, and to have control over when that happens. There was a question when I delivered this to one customer about, if we move that forward to a later version, will this help you go ahead and get that out? And yes, based on the settings here, you can go ahead and try to expedite getting that out, that feature version out, and getting back to parity, right? So again, feature updates may be a bit of a more focused way, a more granular way, a way of having a bit more control over what happens with feature updates in your environment, and it does work hand in hand with update rings, and in this case, will take precedence over what you have set in update rings, so you can be a little bit more specific. Similarly, you have quality updates, and quality updates also will take precedence. You don't see any auto patch stuff here, right? On purpose, once we talk about what this is. If you do configure something in quality updates, then it will also take precedence over whatever settings you have in update rings. Effectively, what the quality updates option here is in various scenarios, there may be a need to really get devices up to speed, expedited with quality updates in a very quick way, right? Maybe it's okay to let your quality updates routinely go out with your update rings, but you might have acquired a new company and you have a bunch of devices out there that you need to up level to the latest quality updates quickly. Or, could be for some reason there's been some that just haven't been updated that quickly. I don't know. A scenario could be that you have machines that stay in the storage closet, and when you pull them out and plug them in, you're getting ready to use them. You want to make sure updates go to those machines ASAP so you can put them in a group, and the updates are expedited to the device. And so you can decide, the only thing you decide here, and there could be other scenarios too. The only thing you decide here is how you want to expedite the quality updates if you have a version less than what's current, right? So maybe these are the one, you might have a bunch that are less than this. And so you choose to go ahead and expedite, and you can define, how long to wait before reboots. The time window to get all of these updates out is going to be significantly compressed compared to the normal settings you would expect in a production environment with update rings, right? We're going to go ahead and put these updates out here. We're not going to worry about waiting to reboot. We're not going to worry about waiting on the user to be idle before we do things. We're not going to wait on scheduling. The precedence will be to get these systems updated, right? And that's what this does. And again, this works in tandem with update rings, but what's set here, the devices targeted by this policy, will definitely move faster, and this will win compared to whatever is set in the update rings policy. All right? Now, driver updates. This is a tremendously beneficial, I think useful configuration that I'm going to struggle to show you at the level that I want to, because all of my machines are virtual, right? But I think you'll get the idea when we look at it and see the value. So the idea is the driver updates. We do have some Windows Auto Patch settings that are created here. I'm going to delete this one. And what you see is that there's a set of drivers that you can review. I don't have any, 0 to review, but the fact it's here implies that we give you the ability to see what drivers are applicable to a given system and to choose which one of those drivers, ones of those drivers, you want to deploy, right? So the first thing we do is create a profile, and the profile is extremely easy. It's one question, right? And then you assign the profile. The question is, do you want to automatically approve all recommended driver updates, and then what days, how long do you want to wait to make them available? Or do you want to manually approve? So this one, I get it. It's simple. You would like to think that this would be workable, and maybe I'm just being paranoid at this, but I've just seen where drivers get released by the manufacturer and they are not as good as the previous driver. They might have a bug associated with them. And so if we automatically go to approve, it's very possible we will pick the latest driver and throw it on there and end up with a driver you don't want, right? So I always, knowing how critical drivers are, I want to always manually approve the drivers and be able to interact and see. And then you're going to assign this to a group of devices, and then you'll wait, right? And so we'll scan through those devices and begin to report forward what drivers are available, what we detect are needed across your enterprise. And you can go in and click on however many to review. Once the drivers start to show up in the back end, you will see this number go from 0 to, 10, 12, 15 to review. And you can go into here and you can see recommended drivers, right? And you can go decide, okay, I'm going to approve this for deployment to my environment. And then those drivers will go down to those machines that need them, right? Or other drivers, right? If you don't want the recommended set, any other drivers that are applicable will be here. You can do the same thing, right? You can see properties of the particular profile, whatever here. All right, so again, mine are virtual machines. I don't have any drivers to show you. I wish I did. But with that description, definitely would recommend you set this up and at least deploy the policy out to a few physical machines to see what results we start to report back. Again, it'll take 24 to 48 hours to start to see those in the console, but then you'll be able to sift through and start to see the value of doing this. And as we talked about, if you deploy drivers from here, it will supersede whatever settings are in here. So if you've blocked driver deployment in your update rings, but you go ahead and approve a driver to update over here, then the driver is going to go down regardless of the setting over here on the update ring, right? So, okay, one other thing that I want to show you related to how you keep an eye on how all of this is working is on the monitor node. You'll see some reports you can take a look at with how things are going with your driver deployment, feature update, deployment, expedited updates, whatever, right? Deployment rings, deployment here, right? These are good reports. Now, you can also get to these reports if you go under monitor. You'll see 6 reports, but you'll notice real quick there's 2, one for Mac OS, iOS for another one that don't apply to the Windows devices. So those 4 same Windows reports are available here just under monitor. And then if you go to the reporting node, you will have the Windows Update report. And here you will actually have 6 reports: feature updates, Windows Update distribution report, feature update device readiness report, right? So there's a couple of extra ones that you don't have. Compatibility risks report for the feature update, a few others that you don't have on the other screens, right? Okay. And you've seen, as we've looked around through this, auto patch. So this is absolutely not an auto patch session, but I do want to at least show you where you would go configure auto patch. And the first place would be under tenant administration. As soon as it moves there, right? And here, if you have not turned on auto patch, is where you would go turn it on. The various options here and ways to interact. Not really going to dig into this at all because this is not an auto patch session, but this is where you would go start to enable auto patch. And then in terms of configuring auto patch, if we go back to devices and focus in on Windows, then we will have auto patch here. And you can see interact with devices, set the devices that should be governed by auto patch. Here, you can go and have impact on the release management kind of settings. What am I going to do with quality updates? For example, being able to configure detail as to what ring structure and so forth, import update rings, et cetera, et cetera. There's also, if I go back to auto patch, the ability to do release settings and what kind of things you want to allow auto patch to govern. Driver updates, expedited updates, whatever. There's release announcements you can look at as to what's out there. You can define your own auto patch groups or interact with the auto patch groups here very easily, and so forth, right? So, folks, that is actually a tour. I wanted to show you, through that. Hopefully that helps clarify some of the way things are working. One other set of things I want to talk to you about before we start to, as we start to wrap up here. You've heard me mention, I showed you the idea of safeguard holds, right? Now, this is not something you really have the ability to interact with, but basically as we deploy updates in the environment, we have the ability through telemetry to see those that might be having problems in a number of environments. And if we see those, we can actually flag them and into a hold status, basically indicating that there's something going on with it. We don't want to continue deploying this into enterprises until we have a chance to look at it, fix it, whatever. And that is what is called a safeguard hold. You might see a graphic similar to this, indicating that the update is still on its way, but for whatever reason, it's not ready right now and will be at some point, right? And we do that for you, right? And so that's what I mean by a safeguard hold. We can enforce that for you and help try to protect things from getting out that are not going to be the best for an environment based on what we learn about it. We've talked about gradual rollout, how we'll use machine learning and different things to help govern how something rolls out in a gradual way across the targeted groups. And we also mentioned, whenever I was talking about options to schedule your deployment of your update rings, your software updates through the update rings, that there are a couple of options where we say deploy and then do this or that within automatic maintenance or within the maintenance period or whatever. And what that's referring to is this automatic maintenance, which is on every Windows 10 and 11 device. You may or may not know it's there, right? But it is. And the window looks kind of like this. And so 2 a.m. by default, you can change that if you want to, but know what this is going to do before you kick in any of those options that make use of the maintenance window, so that you're not surprised, right? And so the way that you access this and see what it's doing is to go to Security and Maintenance, and then click on Maintenance, and you can change your maintenance schedule here, and so forth, right? So enough about that. All right, and then also I did share with you the update rings versus other policies, how they work together, and the other items, the expedited quality updates, the feature updates, the driver updates, they will work with but supersede settings and quality updates. And so we'll wrap it with that. Software updates through Intune, Windows Update for Business, definitely worth taking a look at. Really does help streamline the process and make it easier for IT, more predictable, etc. So we'll wrap this session with that, and we will see you next time.